Hello again, I'm Dick Mosley. A major psychological study was done to find out why some factory workers left with a bounce in their step and a smile on their faces, while others dragged themselves home after a boring day of repetitious work. What caused the difference, the investigators wondered. They did all the same monotonous, mind-numbing work, and yet investigators noted that for some of the employees, the work shifts ended with a positive, upbeat, and a bounce in the step attitude. After careful study, they found that the common denominator, the one factor that was always present in those who left work with a top-of-the-world mindset versus those who drugged themselves home. The researchers discovered that this positive outlook was almost exclusively exhibited in those who had something to look forward to after work. Dining out with friends, shopping with a daughter, game night at the gym, or a date with that someone special. All those who left work with something special planned for that evening were living beyond their present reality of work. Today, Charles is looking at the truth beyond our present reality. He'll be showing you a picture I'm pretty sure you have never seen before. For many, this is the blessed hope that keeps them pressing forward no matter what their frustrations are. Let's join Charles as he goes in search of the truth about our final home.
In our previous program, we looked at the reason that we can believe this book. That reason is prophecy. Prophecy gives us testable evidence that a person with foreknowledge inspired these writings. Together, we considered one of the prophecy stories. Nebuchadnezzar had had a dream, but he couldn't remember what it was. Daniel, a Hebrew captive from Babylon, after fasting and praying for the answer, was shown by God what the king had dreamed and what the dream meant. The king had dreamed of a great image of different kinds of metal. Each metal represented a world kingdom. Babylon was represented by the head of gold. But Babylon was not to stand forever. In fact, it only lasted about 70 years. Babylon was then overthrown by the Medes and the Persians, represented by the chest and arms of silver in 538 BC. The belly and thighs of bronze represented the kingdom of Greece that began in 331 BC. When Alexander the Great conquered the Medes and the Persians in the Battle of Arbela. The kingdom that followed, Greece, was the iron monarchy of the Roman Empire, which ruled the world from 168 BC to AD 476. Daniel was a believer in the God who knows the future. And Daniel had read from the prophecies of Isaiah. Prophecies are used by God to bring us special messages from Him. And this is what the Creator God said. Remember the former things of old, for I am God, and there is none else. I am God, and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times, the things that are not yet done. It was this same prophet Isaiah that named the king who would conquer the Babylon Empire, and then commission the Jews to go back and rebuild Jerusalem. More than a century before this king was even born, the Creator God knew the future. He named Cyrus before his parents were even born. Daniel met Cyrus, whom prophet Isaiah had predicted. Daniel, inspired by the same Holy Spirit, foretold world history with unerring accuracy. In Daniel 8, he named the kingdom of Greece as the third kingdom, some 200 years before it even came into being. He predicted that after the four world empires of Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, and Rome, there would be no other world kingdom. Instead, there would be a divided kingdom of iron and clay, partly strong, partly weak, that would never be united. And true to Daniel's prophecy, the world kingdom of Rome splintered into a fractured Europe that to this day has never been put back together, though much money and blood has been spent trying. This 2,600 years of prophecy has come true with startling exactness. Today we're going to take a look at the final act of this prophecy that sweeps away Earth's past history and starts over. This prophecy doesn't take much faith to believe either, because 83% of this prophecy is already history.
You, O king, were watching, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose splendor was excellent, stood before you, and its form was awesome. This image's head was of fine gold, and its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. You watched while a stone was cut out without hands, which struck the image on its feet of iron and clay, and broke them in pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were crushed together and became like chaff from the summer's threshing floor. And the wind carried them away, so that no trace of them was found. And the stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth.
So what is that stone kingdom cut out without hands that fills the whole earth? Daniel explains, "In the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people. But it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Forasmuch as thou sawest that a stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it brake in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God hath made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter. And the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof sure." Many are convinced that we are at the tips of the toes of this prophetic image, and that the stone kingdom is about to be set up. But first, you have a choice to make. You actually are invited by the one who made this prophecy to live forever in His kingdom. He has left us a great deal of information about heaven and its capital city, the New Jerusalem. Would you like to learn of this colossal city in space that someday will be on earth? I hope you stay tuned, because today you will see pictures that you have never seen before. A painting inspired by the very words of this book. I'm also going to show you pictures of the very place it will be on earth. This book prophesied that God would live on earth and be one of us. The one who fulfilled these prophecies said this about the city in space: "In my Father's house are many mansions. I go there to prepare a place for you. And I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may be also." If you wonder what He's preparing, just look around. It will be much like living here, only a great deal better. This is the God who made planet Earth with all of its beauty that we enjoy. He knows how to do a job right. Some people think of heaven in childish or even silly terms, but you can be sure heaven is a real place and a wonderful place. Let's gather together some of the pictures of heaven that are left here for us. John was a follower of Jesus. He was privileged to see this city in vision, and you can read about what he saw in Revelation 21 and 22. First, he tells us it is a very large city, both in width and height. The city is laid out as a square, and its length is as great as its breadth. And he measured the city with a reed, 12,000 furlongs. Its length, breadth, and height are equal. We don't measure in furlongs today, but a furlong is about 1/8 of a mile. That means each side of the city is 375 miles long. To walk around the city would be a little jaunt of 1,500 miles. But there is another interesting point to these measurements John gives under inspiration. Its length, breadth, and height are equal. That means to go from the bottom of the city all the way to the top is 375 miles straight up. The city appears to be in the shape of a cube. An artist was given all the details from the Bible of this city. Based on what he was told, this is what he painted. John tells us that this city is called the New Jerusalem, and it has remarkable walls. Now, in Jerusalem today, you can see some of the walls that Jesus saw when He would come to the temple. But unlike the imposing walls in the city of Jerusalem today, the New Jerusalem walls are even more impressive. Here's what John said. Its wall is 144 cubits according to the measure of a man, that is, of an angel. A cubit is an ancient unit of linear measure originally equal to the length of the forearm from the tip of the middle finger to the elbow, or about 17 to 22 inches. That would make a wall 204 to 264 feet high. But the text said that the wall, though measured in the cubits the way a man does, was actually measured by an angel. An angel might well have been bigger than John, perhaps even twice his size, which could make the wall as much as 528 feet high. Needless to say, it was impressive for John to see. What was the wall made of? John tells us that the construction of its wall was of jasper. Think of it. A wall 20 to 40 stories high with a radiance and beauty beyond description. Because this city is 375 miles high, the artist envisioned a city with 12 stories, each over 30 miles above the other. Today, 30 miles up would put us in space. So God is going to have to do something a little different with our atmosphere when He brings this city to earth. The Bible tells us that there are 12 gates for this city. And the 12 gates were 12 pearls. Each individual gate was one pearl. Since the Bible seems to indicate that we will have wings, the artist saw one gate for each story or floor of heaven that the inhabitants of that level can fly into. Each gate, imagine, large enough to accommodate all those people and angels. Can you imagine the size of the pearl? John was able to see into the city, and he noticed that the street was paved with gold. The street of the city was pure gold, like transparent glass. Imagine how smooth that must feel to walk on. Imagine how much glory of heaven that street would reflect. Then John's gaze sees a tree unlike anything he has seen before. In the midst of the street of it, and on either side of the river, was there the tree of life, which bare 12 manner of fruits, and yielded her fruit every month. And the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. Can you put on your divine imagination caps and see it? There is the tree of life. It's huge, similar to the great redwoods that we used to drive through in our national park, but many times larger. This tree straddles the street of gold and the river of life. It grows 12 different kinds of fruit, and every month you can pick from this tree and eat. I hope one of the fruits of the tree will be a peach. There's nothing like the taste of a tree-ripened peach full of succulent flavor. This is the tree of life from which, if we eat, we will live forever. By the way, this is one of the reasons I want to go to heaven. There we get to eat forever. Is it true, I hear some asking, that this New Jerusalem city will someday be here on earth? Apparently so. In the Old Testament is a story about Abraham, who was asked by God to leave his home in Ur, or modern-day Iraq, and go to what is now Palestine. In faith, Abraham obeyed. God told him all this land would be given to him someday, but it still has not happened as it was prophesied. Paul spoke of this experience in his letter to the Hebrews. You can read about it in Hebrews 11, verse 9. By faith he sojourned in the land of promise, as in a strange country, dwelling in tabernacles or tents with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. For he looked for a city which hath foundations, whose builder and maker is God. Abraham was looking for a city that God was to build. He expected to live there with all those who love God. John was given a most precious privilege of seeing that city in vision coming to earth, not in symbol of stone at the end of a bad dream, but as it would be in reality. This is what he saw. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. There is nothing in our experience to match the radiance of a bride. Jesus leads the way as the great city comes towards earth. And then the prophet Zechariah sees his foot land on the Mount of Olives facing Jerusalem. Listen to what he saw in vision. And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east. And the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof toward the east and toward the west. And there shall be a great valley, and half the mountain shall remove toward the north, and half toward the south. This city will need a large landing pad there in the Middle East. It'll take up all of Lebanon, the West Bank, Jordan, Israel, along with parts of Syria, Saudi Arabia, and most of Egypt's Sinai Peninsula. How extraordinary! When this glorious city, 1,500 miles in circumference, sets down, it will take up a lot of real estate. If you go to Jerusalem today, as wonderful as it is to be where Jesus was, it still is just a city. There are people being killed in and around Jerusalem. It's not a city of peace. There are people here dying of cancer. There are water mains that break, making a mess. There is dirt and noise in the streets, and in the countryside, people are fighting and shooting at each other, just like in so many other places on the earth. Why would God bring His heavenly city to planet Earth? Because He's going to do something special here on this rebellious planet. First, He's going to burn up all the landfills, the plastic and aluminum, the toxic dumps and polluted riverbeds. He will be destroying all the people who have chosen to live selfish and hurtful lives. You can read about it in Revelation 20, verses 9 and 10. And fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire. Peter tells us, the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works that are therein shall be burned up. And now the good news. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, said John in Revelation 21, verse 1. For the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. This promise gave Peter hope. We, according to this promise, look for a new heavens and a new earth wherein dwelleth righteousness. Now hold me back, folks, because this is where I start getting excited. When the New Jerusalem lands here and God destroys the earth as it now is with fire and recreates the earth fresh and new as it was in the beginning, everything will be wonderful. And He that sat upon the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. And He said unto me, Write, for these words are true and faithful. This is the truth of the holy city that will be here. The Creator will live here in person, and those who choose to live here with Him will never become bored. There will be pleasures forevermore. There will be no more death, no pain, tears, sorrow, sickness, no hospitals, operations, tragedy, or disappointment, no trouble, hunger, or thirst. Those who live in the New Jerusalem will never get tired. Every saved person will be physically whole in every way. The deaf will hear, the blind will see, the dumb will sing, and the lame will be able to run. Jealousy, fear, hatred, falsehood, envy, impurity, cynicism, filth, worry, and all evil will be forever shut out of God's kingdom. People will no longer be burdened with the worries and cares that drive them to distraction. There will be no more nervous breakdowns. Time will become eternity, and the pressures and deadlines of earth will be gone forever. The vast seas that cover 3/4 of the earth's surface today will be gone. The deserts will become gardens. The animals will all be tame. Little children will lead the lions around. There will be no more curse. There will be no more violence of any kind. And for you hurting parents who's lost a child to SIDS or stillbirth, the Bible tells us that the streets of the city shall be full of boys and girls playing in the streets. And for you, guilt-ridden parent who aborted the life of your child, there's hope for you, because the Bible says there will be nursing babies in heaven. Jerusalem is not holy. It is not at all a city of peace, but the New Jerusalem will be. The new city will be our home if we're among the saved. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem.
Grant them peace, most precious gift of all. Keep the worried world far away and small. When they return, may quiet fill their souls. Dearest Lord, keep them safe within its walls. May the stone be cool beneath their feet. May canyon breezes circle soft and sweet. When darkness falls, the stars and double moon find them wrapped in each other, ever warm. May it be a refuge for their love, a harbor for their deepest prayer. May they come to flourish in the grow ever nearer to you there. Many a burdened friend in their company rises. A heavy heart is soon released to fly. May their table be blessed with laughter and with grace, and by the comfort of kinship be surprised. May it be a refuge for their love, a harbor for their deepest prayer. May they come to flourish in the grow ever nearer to you there. May the cold winds blow far from their front door. May the winter rains never bring them harm. May their heart fires burn throughout the night. Grant them sleep until morning's perfect light. May it be a refuge for their love, a harbor for their deepest prayer. May they come to flourish in the grow ever nearer to you there. Grow ever nearer
It is written, eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love Him. Whatever you can imagine, heaven will only be better. Jesus tells us, let not your heart be troubled. Do you believe in God? Then believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may be also.
Indeed, heaven will be a wonderful place. And if you see joy on my face and a bounce in my step, it is because I have embraced this blessed hope. My hope is not in an earthly king or a mandated government. If we care to look at history and current events, then we all know that democracy is not the answer. It's just as bankrupt as communism or socialism. Our only hope is being in heaven with the God of creation. Only then will we live in a world that has no pain or suffering or sadness. We learned today that heaven is our final home. But how do we get a ticket to heaven? How can we be sure that we will be a resident of that wonderful place? I hope you'll join us next time as we go in search of the ticket in.